But what does love have to do with it? Because, we have a lot of people that come out of very emotional churches, very emotional places, and then they come here and they feel like, where's the love? Where's that? Because they're thinking of it from an emotional place. So they go, I don't feel the love there. This is going to be a teaching to really connect up. What does he say about love in terms of the love relating to the two great commands? Okay, I'm going to read those here, but the two great commands, to love him and to love each other. That word there is the agape version of love, and we want to make sure that we're understanding what does he mean and what should that look like and how do we implement and walk in that type of love. Love is talked about a lot in the Brit Hadashah. And in those verses that we read about, in Christianity, you will be taught that it means a whole different thing than what I'm going to show you, because they're not going to connect it as Yahweh is the same yesterday, Yeshua is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and Yahweh does not change. Which means that if Yahweh says something is, then it will always be. If he says something is good, it will always be good. If he says something is no good, it will always be no good. Something that's right will always be right. Something that's wrong will always be wrong. The Torah covers two relationships. And that's really what we have to recognize, that all of this is about relationships. And for those who come in here and say, well, I don't feel the love, because they're not understanding the right relationship they're supposed to be having. And out of that right relationship comes the love. Out of how many of you, don't have to raise your hand, have felt love in a wrong way, in a wrong relationship, because the relationship was wrong, so the love was wrong. But if the relationship is right, the love will be right. Here's something that you probably have never heard, certainly out of me before, but you maybe never heard before. When most people read verse 26, with men this is impossible, with Elohim all is possible, what do you normally think? You normally think, because Elohim will do it for me. Elohim can come in and do and make things happen. Or maybe he's consistent to where he started with the commandments and says, if you are in Elohim, which is following, obeying, submitting, all things are possible. Instead of saying with Elohim because he can do it, but recognizing that doing and applying what he gave you to do, you can do it. So here we see, again, he's talking about love and he's talking about keeping commandments. You're going to find, and we're not going to read every place that this is, you're going to find that almost everywhere that you're reading about him telling them that they need to obey and keep commandments, guard the commands, remember the commands, etc. Somewhere in the same either verse or within one verse forward or backward, he's going to remind you that it's part of how you love him. It's also how you learn to love each other. So those who teach against the law, the instructions, those who say it was done away with, have no ability to complete the two great commands. Because it's the law that tells you how to love him and love each other. Beloved ones, let us love one another, because love is of Elohim, and everyone who loves has been born of Elohim and knows Elohim. So now, when he's talking about love, if you don't know that love is connected to Torah, you don't know what he's talking about. If you have not spent time left of Matthew, you don't understand this. John is speaking to people that should know and understand that he's absolutely talking about the fullness of Messiah. I am the way, the truth, the life, the talking, walking Torah. I am everything. If you love me, keep my commandments. Well, if you don't know what in the world, ask anybody, well, what commandments is he talking about? They don't know. You need to know what commandments. Well, if you don't do the Father and the Son teaching and don't know he's the lawgiver, then you don't know, you're scrambling around looking for the red letters in your Bible trying to figure out what these commandments are. Well, unless your red letters go all the way back to all the Yahweh says in the beginning of the book, you're missing half of it anyway. So this idea of being in us goes back again to John 14. It has to do with the idea of those who confess that he's come in the flesh. You have to confess that Messiah is now in your flesh. But he's not in your flesh if you don't do what he did and do what he said. And why would he stay there? If you moved into a person's house and they were expecting you to come in as authority, and then they ignored everything you said and disrespected you all the time, would you stay in that house? You realize he's not just to be reverenced He's not just to have that you have awe for him, but you realize he loves you. He wants to bless you. He wants to keep you safe. He gives you the tools you need. And that's when you fall in love with him. Not the emotionalism stuff that you got before in Christianity. This is where you realize that it's a mature love. Not the puppy love or the initial love or the wowed and awed love or whatever and all that emotional stuff. This is a deep emotion that comes from experience, from truth, from reality, from relationship over time.